In this century, great strides have been made toward the goal of subverting our republic into a democracy. The foremost tactic of the subverters is subversion of language. By calling America a democracy until people thoughtlessly accept and use the term, the totalitarians have obscured the real meaning of our principles of government. That is a summary of my report on a constitutional republic, not a democracy.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that include Vivek Ramaswamy taking another woke media reporter to task. After yesterday's video, we showed the clip of him with that Washington Post reporter. Well, the same thing happened again, this time with an NBC reporter during a sit-down interview that they had today. We have the clip. We'll look at it together. Also, we look at President Biden's speech today, marking the 3rd anniversary of J6th. This is supposed to be the unifier in chief, right? Supposed to bring all of America together, as much of it as possible. Well, during his speech, he said some things that were anything but unifying. Calling out Donald Trump directly, saying some real disparaging things that I don't think are unifying whatsoever. So we'll look at that also. And apartment supply. If you look at financial media, they're saying this is the best thing that's happened in years. How this is exactly what America needs, this surge in new apartments. Well, is that the truth? Is that what America really needs? We'll look at it. But before we get started, press the like button, subscribe, share the video with a friend. All that helps out with the YouTube algorithm, because today at 2 p.m., we posted our daily show like we always do. And within 20 minutes, YouTube struck the video from the platform, citing that we violated their cyberbullying and harassment policy. But we didn't cyberbully or harass anybody. The only person that we mentioned directly was Bill Clinton. And the funny part about that is that the story that we were talking about was Bill Clinton having sway over the media, having a catch and kill operation, a catch and capture operation to be able to catch these stories that he doesn't like and squash them before they come out. Well, 20 minutes after releasing our video, YouTube somehow had a manual reviewer look at our video, watch it, and decide that it violated their harassment policy. I mean, we're a very small channel, folks. We just started this channel 2 weeks ago. We have a very little audience. Thank you for watching, by the way. It was a great episode as well. So if you did want to see it, it's still live. Vivek Ramaswamy had another exchange, this time during a sit-down interview with a NBC News reporter. Just like yesterday, they brought the topic of white supremacy up. Now, yesterday's situation was a bit different. It was quick. It was more off the cuff. I think that reporter was just looking for a quick story. That's what they do. They use this subject as a hook to be able to ask a Republican or somebody that opposes that viewpoint that white supremacy is this huge problem in America, and they ask the question, and then they have a story that they can run with. Lazy reporting a lot of the time. Today was different. This was planned programming. They sat down with Vivek, had a long-form interview, like 45 minutes or something like that, and this was a big chunk of the exchange. Watch what happens. Take a look at this.
Talk about white supremacy and what happened last night for a moment, because when you were talking to reporters last night, you called white supremacy a myth. When someone asked you about Dylan Roof, you said you didn't know who that is. Have you looked up what happened in 2015?
Yeah, look, I said this last night. Invidious racial discrimination is wrong no matter how it happens. But if a Washington Post reporter is asking me almost like a catechism, whatever question I said, I'm against invidious racial discrimination, whatever form it takes, but says, do you denounce white supremacy? It's incumbent on us for us to define what white supremacy is. I wrote my book, Woke Inc., and I've written about the detailed understanding of what the popular understanding of these terms have come to mean. Do you believe punctuality is a vestige of white supremacy, Dasha?
Look,
because if you don't, then you have a disagreement about many of the people who are defining those terms, or the written word, or the use, or the nuclear family. This is These aren't my words. These are the words of intellectual proponents from Ibram Kendi to the Ayanna Presleys to BLM that have said these are vestiges of white supremacy. So
Mr.
we
Ramaswamy,
can't have it both
this
ways.
is what you do, though.
We have to have an
You
honest
choose
discussion.
Straw man arguments.
I'm not,
Last
this is not
night
a straw man.
you
This is
brought
not
up
a straw
Jussie
man.
Smollett as the best
Jussie
example
Smollett
of white
was the hottest thing in
supremacy.
news in the back of a fake actual attack on him that we have to contend with.
And yet you have examples like the
federal law
Buffalo
enforcement's
shooter
data.
in New York just in
Cherry-picked.
2022.
You have other
but
examples.
you are also cherry picking when you bring up Jussie
So
Smollett.
I'll look at all of the statistics. More black on black
Absolutely.
crime. If you really care about actual crime against black Americans, let's get to the root causes of it in the inner cities of this
Look,
country.
the Anti-Defamation League tracked a 38% increase in white supremacist propaganda last year.
Who's tracking that?
The Anti-Defamation League.
Yeah, the ADL, I don't think is a particularly credible source
So
when
who
they
are
have
we
a
supposed to
cherry-picked
look
information.
In another story, President Joe Biden delivered a speech to mark the 3rd anniversary of the J6 Capitol riot. During the speech, he stated unequivocally that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and how we almost lost everything 3 years ago, he said. Even America itself saying this, today we gathered in a new year, just one day before January 6th, the day forever seared in our memory because it was on that day when we nearly lost America, lost it all. He went on to say this, today we're here to answer the most important questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? Now, if Joe Biden knows anything about our form of government, he'll know that we're not a democracy. In the first part of every episode for the last few days or for the last week, we've been putting a certain intro in place that shows and explains that we're not a democracy. We've never been a democracy. We're a constitutional republic, and we were set up that way by our founding fathers for a reason. To protect our form of government, to protect the American people. Because when you have majority rules and you got groupthink that takes over, like we're seeing in this country right now, and everyone's scared to voice their opinion, say what they really think, you can only imagine what would happen. You're seeing it all take place right now in other countries like in Europe, Australia. It hasn't happened yet in the States, and that's because of our form of government. So Joe Biden's mistaken. Democracy isn't the most important thing to America, and it shouldn't be. Here was Donald Trump's response to those statements. He says this, please make no mistake, Joe Biden and his allies are the real and compelling threat to democracy. In fact, in a way never seen before in our history, they are waging a war against it. In another story, millions of Americans are grappling with a severe housing affordability crisis where 99% of Americans are just completely priced out of the market right now. It's been that way for the last few years. Well, they say there's a glimmer of hope. The supply of apartments in the U.S. has surged to its highest point in almost 4 decades, and projections suggest that further expansion is coming over the next year. This upturn, they say, could potentially empower renters with increased leverage when renegotiating their lease agreements. But is that what you want? Do you want to renegotiate your lease agreement, or do you want to buy a house? We don't need cheaper apartments in this country. We need cheaper homes. The rent-to-buy ratio right now is so inverted, is so upside down, lopsided, that renting is so ridiculously cheap compared to buying a house that no one's even considering getting into home ownership anymore, especially for younger Americans. People under the age of 40 are the people who have families, who are not able to get themselves into a home, buy their own piece of property, their own land, call it their own. That's what the American dream is supposed to be, at least part of it. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe, I'll see you next time.